A very warm welcome. A very warm welcome to the virtual stakeholders meeting for the Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund 2 project in Nigeria. On behalf of Acumen Fund and C21st, I am delighted to see everyone join this meeting today. So just a brief about the meeting. This meeting aims to bring together key perspectives to ensure the ARAF II project and activities align with local priorities and promote sustainable climate resilient agricultural development across Nigerian communities. So before we begin, I would like to extend a special welcome to the Acumen Fund team and all our guests to this meeting, and then also to the Acumen Fund team whose leadership this project has taken shape. So it's my honor to welcome everyone, and I would like to invite Ms. Akosa to deliver the opening address and then officially commence the stakeholders meeting. So Ms. Akosa, you're welcome. The virtual floor is yours, ma'am. Hello, is Ms. Akosa on the call?
Hi, I'm going to assume that you mean me. This is Akugo, right?
Oh, sorry, Ms. Akosa, the Executive Director for Center for 21st Century Issues. Before that, I would like to introduce myself. Sorry about that. My name is Jumoke Odediji. I'm the Program Manager for Center for 21st Century Issues. So I think we should take turns for the introduction briefly before we go into the meeting proper. So we can take turns to do an introduction, just a short introduction of ourselves. Okay, Dr. Nkiru, you can please introduce yourself while you pass it to the next person. Thank you. Hello, can anyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So I want us to take turns to introduce ourselves before we go into the meeting.
Hi, apologies. Hello, everybody. I was trying to find my mute button. My name is Akugo Onekusi. I'm the Associate Investment Director for ARAF for West Africa. That covers Nigeria and Ghana, and I'm happy to be here and to meet you all. Thank you all for your participation and your presence.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes, please.
Hello?
Yes, we
We
can.
can hear you. Hello? Hello, everyone.
Hi, we can hear you.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, Jumoke, can you start this meeting? Thank you. You're welcome, everyone. And Mr. Sam Jewett, welcome. So, I hand over to Jumoke to proceed.
All right, thank you, ma. We were doing just a brief round of introduction so that we can start probably and then give others the chance to join the meeting before we start proper. So Dr. Nkiru just gave an introduction. I would pass it on to the next person to quickly give an introduction.
Yeah, sorry, Jumoke. We don't have time for everybody to introduce themselves. Can you just introduce yourself and why we are here so that we can go on with it? And if people have questions, they can tell us their names. Really, we don't have much time. Really sorry. Please.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Yeah, I welcome everyone once again. This virtual meeting is a platform to bring together key stakeholders and then to facilitate dialogue and gather valuable insights into the ARAF II activities and investments, which aligns with local priorities and address the unique challenges faced by Nigerian communities. So briefly, I would give a short summary of the ARAF project before I pass it down to the Acumen team to give their presentation. Okay, the ARAF project is the Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund project, which is a GCF accredited project, which was approved on 1st March 2018. And the accredited entity in charge of the project is the Acumen Fund Incorporation. So for the implementing countries for the project, we have Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda. So the ARAF project aims to support pioneering and early growth innovative agri-businesses that enhance climate resilience for smallholder farmers in Nigeria. Knowing that agriculture is a major industry with up to 80% of farmland managed by smallholder farmers, highly vulnerable to climate change impacts. Climate resilience is crucial for ensuring sustainable long-term increases in agricultural productivity and incomes. So, okay, that's just a short on the ARAF project. So I will be passing it on to Sam to give their presentation on the ARAF II project, and then they can introduce the project. Thank you. Over to you, Sam.
First, I would love to thank the Center for 21st Century Issues for organizing this stakeholder engagement meeting for Nigerian stakeholders. We are so appreciative of the opportunity to engage with your teams and to learn from you. My name is Sam Jewett. I work at Acumen supporting our fund development projects. I'm also our secondary focal point for the Green Climate Fund. And so if there's opportunities for us to engage with your respective organizations, I'm the person that you should be reaching out to. And so we're really grateful for this opportunity to share this project and to learn from your team. We're excited to speak about our newest project, which is the Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund II, where we'll be speaking about what we're learning for this project, what we want to learn from you, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Hugo, who will be leading us in this presentation.
Hello, everybody. Once again, my name is Akugo Onyekusi. I'm the Associate Investment Director for ARAF, and ARAF is Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund, as Jumoke mentioned. For ARAF, so covering West Africa, so that's Nigeria and Ghana. This webinar is going to focus on Nigeria, and it will focus also on ARAF II first, and then we'll touch a bit on ARAF I's track record. An important thing to note is that ARAF II is building off of the track record and strategy of ARAF I. So this is an existing investment strategy that we've already implemented and we have shown results. And so that's what we intend to continue to propagate. Sam, please could you go to the next slide? Okay, so just an overview of ARAF II. The ARAF II is going to be a venture capital fund, and that means that it's going to pool capital from limited partners, which are investors. For ARAF I, we had investors including the Green Climate Fund. We also had DFIs that included FMO and Propaco. So we pool capital from investors, and then we use that capital to invest in companies. So we will invest in early growth stage companies that agribusinesses, fast-growing agribusinesses that support smallholder farmers to make them more resilient to climate change. And I'll tell you what that means for us really shortly. But our portfolio for ARAF II, we plan to invest in 20 such companies. Our ticket size is going to be from $500,000 to $5 million of initial investment. For ARAF I, our sweet spot was about $1 million, and we invested mostly in companies that were either in pre-Series A, so they were either doing their pre-Series A round or they were doing their Series A round. And usually what that means is that they had fine-tuned their business model, they were already generating income, they were already generating revenue, sorry, not income. And so they knew what their business model would be. They knew the opportunity that they were targeting and that they wanted to capture. And so we were usually funding them for growth. That said, that doesn't mean that we didn't fund earlier stage opportunities, because we did. So we will be funding, and we will continue to fund along that spectrum of early growth to growth. We invest in equity and quasi-equity. So those are the instruments that we use: MERS, equity, convertibles. As Jumoke mentioned, currently we're in 5 countries, but we're going to expand to 10 countries. In East Africa, we plan to invest in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the new addition to East Africa. In West Africa, we intend to invest in Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal, with Francophone Africa, West Africa being the new addition to West Africa. And in North Africa, we intend to invest in Morocco and Egypt. So I'll talk a bit about ARAF strategy just shortly, but in our target in terms of farmers reached for this new fund will be 4 million. In our initial fund, it was 2 million. And by the end of 2023, we had already reached 1.1 million farmers. We had already passed 1.1 million farmers. As we target in Fund 2 to reach 4 million farmers, that means that we would also be impacting 20 million lives, because the farmers are part of farming households or families. So to talk a bit about our investment strategy. Okay. To talk a bit about our investment strategy, we invest in platform businesses, and those are businesses that, because we know from our experience, and ARAF was built off of Acumen's 10 plus years experience investing across the world in agri. And what Acumen found out from its investment was that farmers need help along the value chain, especially smallholder farmers, right? They need help giving them access to inputs, access to credits, so that they can actually afford the inputs, quality inputs, and they can also prepare their land. They need access to agronomical support to introduce them to new ways of farming and also climate smart practices. And then they need help connecting them directly to markets. Additionally, they need help with infrastructure. So that could include mechanization and also access to irrigation. And so platform businesses are businesses that help farmers across the value chain, providing them with bundled solutions, so multiple solutions. As I mentioned before, what we mean when we say that we want to invest in companies that help farmers to become more resilient to climate change, we usually mean 3 things. Number 1, help farmers to improve their yields, help farmers as a result of improving their yields to also improve their income. You can improve your yield by nature of improving your yield. It could generate an increase in your income. But if a farmer is able to improve their yield, and then you connect them to better prices by directly connecting them to premium markets, i.e. by bypassing the intermediaries that the farmers usually have to deal with, then you have an exponential impact on the farmer's income. And as a result of that, we already know from our interactions with farmers and from work that Acumen has done previously, that farmers are more able to invest in their productive capacity going forward. The last thing is that we hope for we're looking for companies that can help farmers to diversify their income, their revenue sources. Next slide, thanks. Okay, so why ARAF? ARAF, as I mentioned, is we're an experienced team, and we are implementing on a proven investment thesis. As I mentioned, this is our second fund. Our first fund has already delivered results and has already had impact. We have a unique investment thesis that is addressing a very dire need for farmers. I just went through our investment strategy just in the previous slide when I was explaining our investment strategy. And we measure performance based on with two key metrics. First of all, we do track and look at financial performance of the companies in our portfolio, but we're also tracking and measuring the impact on farmers. So the impact on farmers, their livelihoods, and their families across our portfolio. And I'll go into that in detail when I talk about our impact scorecard. Next slide, please. I'm not going to, I've already touched on the geographies from our, okay. So the challenge and the solution. So what is the fund trying to, what challenges is the fund trying to address? First of all, Africa as a whole, and Nigeria in particular too. But Africa as a whole is very vulnerable to the impact of climate change. And we've already started seeing it across various countries. And many different sectors are at risk, but agri is very much at risk just because the farmers, especially the smallholder farmers in Africa, rely a lot on weather, right? Because they rely on rain-fed agriculture. So the reason why we say Africa is at risk and has high vulnerability is because agriculture itself makes up a big portion of our GDP. And also smallholder farmers contribute a lot both to agriculture, but they make up also a big portion of the work that the people in rural communities are doing within our economies. There's also a lack of information and financing. So this has to do with the fact that the farmers themselves are still relying on traditional practices that they learned from their grandparents, right? They're not innovating in terms of, or using the latest technologies or knowledge in terms of helping them to adapt to the coming crisis that climate change is going to bring about. And then poor market access. I've touched on this a bit. Farmers rely on intermediaries just because they're very disparate and spread across the nation. So they have to rely on, they don't have access. And in fact, even just based on their educational ability and their exposure, right? They don't have the scale in terms of even their outputs, but they also don't have the sophistication to negotiate with large companies that are the buyers for their commodities. And so they have to rely on intermediaries and aggregators who then sort of like take from, they aggregate offtake from farmers at lower prices, add margins, and sometimes there could be up to 3 to 4 aggregators in the link before the produce gets to the end user, whether that's going to be a manufacturer or a consumer. And each link in that chain adds a margin onto it, such that the farmer that actually did the work of producing the crop takes the least amount of value extraction in that value chain. So a lot of value is lost, and that's what a lot of the companies that we work with that we invest in by directly connecting farmers to markets are able to do. I won't go through this again. Okay, actually, there's a bit of additional detail that I can talk about in terms of going a bit further into what we mean when we invest in platform businesses. So we invest in the 3 types of platform businesses we invest in are aggregator platforms, digital platforms, and innovative financial solutions. So aggregator platforms are people or companies that offtake from farmers, but not just offtake. We always look for companies that provide multiple solutions to farmers. So they could offtake from farmers, but then they could also be vertically integrated. So they could provide farmers with credit, they could provide farmers with input, access to inputs, agronomical support. And they would be doing this because it's good for their business model. For example, there's a company that we're going to discuss further on down the line, a company that we've invested in Nigeria. It's called Tomato Juice. Now, Tomato Juice has an outgrower scheme where farmers farm on behalf of Tomato Juice. They farm tomatoes, and Tomato Juice, that helps Tomato Juice secure its supply of raw materials for its factory. Tomato Juice itself is a tomato paste processing company, right? And so the feedstock that they use is tomatoes. Their tomatoes need to be a certain quality, but they also need to have a certain quantity of tomatoes at the end of a harvest. And for them to be able to secure that quantity that they need, it's good for them, or it helps them, it's efficient for them when they work with farmers. They can help the farmers to improve their yields, and they've done that over the course of their working with farmers. They've been able to improve farmers' yields from 5 metric tons per hectare to 30 metric tons, so that's 6x. And their target is actually to improve it all the way to 45. So that would be about 9x increase in the yield. And the reason why they do that is because it helps them to, it's good business for Tomato Juice, just as it is impacting the lives of farmers. So that's the kind of symbiotic relationship that we want to see in the companies that we invest in with the farmers that they work with, right? It's not every company that we look at when we're evaluating companies, that their business models lend themselves to working this symbiotically with farmers. So we're looking for the businesses who as their business prospers, the farmers are also able to prosper, because the business either needs a certain quality of produce or a certain quantity of produce. So it's good. It's embedded in their performance for farmers to do well and their produce to also do well. So digital platforms utilize technology to help to give farmers services, whether that is access to inputs or credit, as we've mentioned previously, or access to early warning systems, and also off-taking from farmers, connecting farmers to buyers. And there's actually another business in Nigeria that we're currently looking at that we hope to have invested in by the end of this month. So, and then there's financial service, innovative financial services, which include like companies that help farmers get access to credit, i.e. they might be working with farmers on a different, in many different ways, but they have access to the farmer's information in terms of how much the farmer is producing, how much they're making in terms of transactions. And so they can use that information to help them understand the farmer's credit worthiness and connect that to banks who want to provide loans to farmers, but there's a difficulty for banks to do so because they don't know the farmers, or it's expensive for them to service the farmers. But because these companies are already working with farmers, they're able to have that information and synthesize it in such a way that makes sense in terms of pinpointing the credit worthiness of these farmers. There's also access to insurance, index-based insurance, so weather index insurance. Next slide, please. And next slide. Okay, so part of in all the countries in which we're operating in, we actually look at their the NDC's national adaptation plans to understand the company's priorities in terms of agri, because we want to ensure that where the country is focusing and where they're focused in terms of whether it's financing agri and where they intend to make interventions, that we're aligned with that, so that those are where the opportunities are in terms of adaptation financing. For Nigeria specifically, I don't want to read all of this because I'm actually mindful of the time, because we want to give you enough time to ask us questions. And so I want to wrap up this in 5 minutes, but we have put the various NDC priorities for Nigeria into the different buckets of how it impacts the investment pillars or strategies or investment strategies, and how we try to connect and ensure that the companies that we're investing in are aligned with the Nigerian NDC's priorities. Next slide, please.
To have others.
Okay, so this slide just talks about the different ways that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, based on the different assessment reports, the different predictions and actual even the current and different projections in terms of how climate change is going to affect Nigeria. Rises in temperature that might lead to droughts, and changing rainfall patterns. We've already seen this affecting farmers, including also flooding. Some of the farmers that we have spoken to in Kwara State and in Niger State have had to move from, and these are farmers that usually were farming paddy rice, and they've had to move from farming rice during the rainy season to farming rice during 2 seasons. So they farm rice also during the dry season now. And as a result of that, they actually need irrigation, which we know that there's not widespread irrigation in Nigeria. So it's just the different ways in which farmers have had to adapt to the changing climate. They're already having to adapt, whether that's changing the farming cycle. So either we've heard instances of farmers starting the planting season earlier so that they can escape or avoid the raining season, or the strongest part of the raining season, just because they don't want the flood to impact their produce. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so I've talked a bit about tomato juice, but maybe just explaining what the company does. It's a vertically integrated tomato paste processing company. As I already mentioned, it has an in-grower program or scheme where farmers plant tomatoes that the company then offtakes. The company agrees a price with the farmers before the season, provides the farmers with a package of inputs on credits, which it then repays them when it offtakes from them. So it deducts the cost of the offtake from it deducts the cost of the initial loan that was provided in kind from the offtake that it from the produce that it offtakes, from the naira value of the produce that it offtakes from them at the end of the farming season. By the end of last year, Tomato Juice had reached 2,500 farmers and impacted 12,600 lives. And as I mentioned before, it had been able to increase yields from 5 metric tons per hectare to 30 plus metric tons per hectare. And the target is actually to reach 45 metric tons per hectare. So in terms of how it improves the climate resilience of farmers, it provides them with access to high yielding seeds on credit. And credit is one of the things that we are really looking for companies to be able to provide to farmers, because that just expands the amount of production that they're able to do, because they don't have this access to credit in commercial quantities directly from banks. Tomato Juice also gives them direct market access, as I mentioned before, about the different numbers of intermediaries that might be in the value chain between the farmers and the end users, and how those intermediaries extract the values that ultimately some of which should be going to the farmers. And Tomato Juice also provides agronomical support in terms of farmer training. Next slide. Okay, so at ARAF, we're always building a pipeline opportunities for, so these are some of the identified pipelines that we have for ARAF II, and it's cuts across the board. Some of the companies are digital platforms, some are in precision advisory, so which will provide farmers with the exact information that they need, including, and then also provide end users with traceability. Next slide, please. I think I talked about this a bit, so let's just go to the next slide. So these are the companies that we have in our first fund in ARAF I. We have one more company that we plan on investing in, and that company is in Nigeria. And I mentioned a bit about it. It's going to be, it's in the digital platforms area, but these are the companies that ARAF is currently invested in, and these companies span the spectrum. Sun Culture provides solar irrigation pumps to farmers, which is, as I mentioned before, that one of the things that, sorry, I'm looking at the time again, but one of the things about the vulnerability of farmers is just the dependence on the weather. And so the ability to provide irrigation to farmers, which is access to irrigation to farmers, which is what Sun Culture does, is really laudable. I think let's move to the next slide. If there's any questions on our portfolios, I can come back to this. ARAF's impact on companies, we've been able to help since our post-investment, we've been able to help companies grow their revenue by 3x. We've been able to help companies implement gender action plans and environmental and social action plans. And we've been able to help companies increase their employment or number of jobs by 72%. This is the geographical distribution of the countries that we've been able to invest in for ARAF I. Just to mention that the reason, okay. One thing I wanted to mention specifically about Nigeria is just that, as all of us who are in Nigeria know, over the last 3 to 4 years, it's been very difficult in Nigeria just because of the exchange rate volatility. And that impacts ability to invest and deploy capital in Nigeria, just because before 4 years ago, when the naira was estimated, investors used to estimate that the naira would depreciate between 10% and 15% year on year. It wouldn't do that in any specific year, but if you streamlined or compress the historical devaluation of the naira, it would be about 10 to 15% year on year. But recently, the naira has been depreciating about 30 to 40% year on year. And so what that means, this is to the dollar. And so what that means is that we would be requiring the companies in Nigeria to grow at more than 30%. In fact, it'll be up to a 40% year on year in naira terms, which finding companies that are able to grow at that clip, and just the uncertainty around the performance of the naira has made it really difficult to invest in Nigeria. However, this new administration has been very intentional in terms of addressing the volatility of the naira. And so we are hopeful that over the next, in short to medium term, the naira will become more stable. Next slide. Okay, so this is ARAF's impact scorecard, and it's something that we're very, very proud of. Over the last 4 years, we've been able to impact 1 million farmers, as I mentioned, and 5 million lives. What we do every year for each of our companies, when we invest in the companies, we do a farmer survey, which gives us a baseline in terms of the farmers' access to the services that the underlying company provides. And then subsequently, every 2 years for some companies, or some companies every year, or some companies every 3 years, we continue to survey the farmers just to be able to understand their experience in terms of the services that the company provides. From these surveys, we've been able to find that 80% of farmers report increased incomes since the period of time when they started working with the companies, the companies in our portfolio. 87% of them report improved way of farming, 80% report improved yield, and 85% report improved quality of life. Let me just talk a little bit about the climate resilience. I had already mentioned previously about what we look for when we're looking for companies, but how we capture it in terms of our in terms of monitoring it is, we know that farmers are better off when they have access to the enablers. Now, access to enablers are the things that help farmers to improve their farming. These include access to credit and input. And because through working with ARAF companies, we know that farmers have improved their, so this is why this is going up in terms of green. Like farmers have been able to have better access to enablers. And the second one is ability to adapt. Now, ability to adapt measures a farmer's ability to change their farming practices or improve their farming practices in a way that helps them to be more adaptive to climate change. And we can also see that going up. Ability to absorb is a bit more stagnant, and that measures a farmer's ability to absorb the impact of climate change. And typically that is around like access to insurance. And so we're really working hard with the companies in our portfolio to be able to provide more insurance to farmers, because that's one area where there's more avenue for improvement. But on the whole, we've been able to help, the companies in our portfolios have been able to help farmers become more resilient by 700 basis points, increasing from 38%, that's where the baseline was, to 45%. Okay, so I think this is the end of this part of the presentation, and the part of the presentation we wanted to share with you. So I'll open it up now to questions and answers.
Hey, Hugo, do you mind if I quickly jump in for just 2 minutes?
Please go ahead.
Sure. So there's two pieces of the presentation that we didn't quite get to, but I wanted to share because I think this group can give us a lot of insights on that. One is something that we care deeply about, which is gender. Our team has a full process, like a circular process for understanding gender and incorporating in our project. We do gender assessments to understand, and stakeholder engagement to understand, the gender dynamics of the communities that we're seeking to serve. And then when we're trying to find companies, we look for female leaders and female staff and companies that have embraced gender dynamics. And that's the part of the process we call developing a pipeline. When we look at a company, we look at it specifically, how much can they embrace gender? Do they have gender-based initiatives? Do they have protections for women? We then will go into, if companies do have these kinds of, opportunities for women, these are considered positive things that we want to include to promote if we make that investment. After we make an investment, we provide post-investment support. So if companies need to improve their sexual harassment policies, we'll provide support for that. If they need to improve their, retention of female customers, we'll work with them on that. And we'll do that in this thing called a gender action plan. Each one of our companies are required to have a gender action plan. And part of our ongoing engagement with companies is checking in with companies on a quarterly basis, and sometimes on an annual basis, depending on the company, on how they're performing on gender, or how they're performing on a number of different kinds of initiatives around gender. And then and so we really are committed to to strong gender outcomes, whether that's improving female jobs, improving, inclusive environments in these businesses that we're investing in, or supporting female farmers. And so we're really excited about our gender work. We've been that's building off of our Fund 1. And then the second piece I wanted to mention briefly was that we are also really committed to, and we want to learn from you about environmental and social protections. We have developed an environmental and social management system so that we can best understand the risks and opportunities of our project. We know that investing in agribusinesses has lots of opportunities to improve the environmental and social outcomes of the communities that we're serving, but we also know that there's risks. Agriculture has had issues with deforestation or harming biodiversity. It's also had issues with labor and working conditions. And so we evaluated all these projects for, opportunities to enhance companies' abilities to environmental and social protections. We want to help companies with improving their human resource policies. We want to help companies improve their commitments to biodiversity. And so we investigate each company we're potentially investing in for environmental and social issues, and then we help them improve those environmental and social opportunities through environmental and social action plans. We have this a really robust system where we've provided technical support to these companies, where we've brought in experts to support them, but we also need to learn from you. And so one of the things that we're really excited about is the opportunity to do a Q&A about this project, but also to learn from your team, from your organizations. What are the environmental and social risks that you see? What are the gender-based opportunities that you see? What are you learning about farmers and climate resilience that we could benefit from as we develop our project? Your expertise and your guidance is so deeply appreciated, and we're looking forward to opening up this time for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam. We would open the floor for participants to give their input or ask questions. So please, if you have any question or suggestion or input, kindly raise your virtual hand while I give you the floor to speak. Okay, we have a hand here. Oluwatoyin, please kindly speak. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Oluwatoyin Olapade from La Sostec Women's Farmers Association. Thank you for that presentation. We really appreciate that. But of all what you are saying, you are talking about big farmers. We in our own association, we are small farmers. We are into fishery and crop planting and other things. We are just women in farming. Most of those things that we talk about, you discuss about how the organization help farmers, especially the tomato something. You didn't discuss about how are the small farmers, how are you going to assist them? We that don't have large hectares of land, that we are just small things, we use our salary, we invest our salary into farming. How can we be assisted? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Oluwatoyin. I don't know if Sam wants to answer that, or should we just take all the questions, then we can?
No, I would love for us to jump in.
Yeah, so Oluwatoyin, thank you so much for your comment. Actually, just to correct an impression, and I apologize if it wasn't clear. As I mentioned, we invest in companies that work with smallholder farmers. So all of these interventions and smallholder farmers to us are farmers that have 2 acres or less. So we're actually focused on small farmers, if that wasn't clear.
Yeah, I think the important thing to note is that these companies are, we're hoping that these companies grow, and we hope that they become more scalable and sustainable, but we also hope that their customers continue to be smallholder farmers. These companies are looking for products that are affordable as well as helpful for smallholder farmers, like extending insurance to smallholder farmers for the first time, or offering solar irrigation products that are able to reach lower income farmers via a payment system plan. And so the goal isn't necessarily that these customers are changing, it's that we want these companies to continue to grow by reaching smallholder farmers. And so it's really important that our impact is towards those smallholder farmers.
Yeah, and maybe if I can add on, my name is Timona from Acumen. I think maybe a key concept to note is that the fund is not directly investing into smallholder farmers. Rather, the fund is is investing in agribusinesses that support smallholder farmers. So the support will not come from the fund directly, but from the agribusinesses. So how you can think about it as a farmer is that we'll be investing in that business that will be selling you maybe organic manure. We'll be investing in that business that will be giving you agricultural extension services. We'll be investing in that agribusiness that may be selling you farm inputs at a lower affordable price, or an agribusiness that will be selling you solar water pump. So our support will be more of like indirect rather than direct.
Sorry, I have to come in here. My name is Titi Akosa. I'm the Executive Director of Center for 21st Century Issues. So if it is indirect, how do we link up our small-scale farmers to these companies? Because I think that's the missing link here for them. Because yes, you are offering all these important services that they need. So what kind of support would they get? And where are some of these companies located? I saw the slide that show where they are, but I'm not sure they're all over Nigeria the way it is. So, but at least for where they are, how can these small-scale farmers link up to them? Because we have a lot of farmers from Benue, from Niger State, from Abuja here. So I'm sure they will also want to link up these companies. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, currently in Nigeria, the company we have is Tomato Juice. But we are currently about to close an investment in another company that sources from so Tomato Juice is in Kaduna State. And if there's anybody here who already is farming tomatoes in Kaduna State and is on a small, a small farmer that is farming tomatoes in Kaduna State, then maybe there's a potential there. But the thing is that they have to be close to, they can't just be in any part of Kaduna State. They sort of have to be close to Tomato Juice to be in the catchment area for Tomato Juice, right? And it has to sort of be part of Tomato Juice's strategy, right? But we are sourcing, we're about to close an investment in a company that sources more broadly from farmers in different communities across 12 states in Nigeria, including Benue and Niger, which you had mentioned. So if any of the people are farming things like grains and tubers, then they might fall under the areas that the company is they might fall under the groups that the company is interested in. But again, as Simona mentioned, we don't prescribe to our companies in terms of what they should do or impact or tell them how they should, whether it is capture farmers or go to market, because they're the ones who are on the ground. They're the ones who are seeing the opportunity more broadly. And they're the ones that are on the ground and seeing the opportunity more broadly. So they're the ones who are driving their own internal strategy of how to capture the market, how to source from farmers and different things like that. So on a case-by-case basis, we're not going to be telling our companies, oh, this woman's name is Fatima. How about you start buying or selling from Fatima? They look into communities, and they look into, first of all, states, identify what is most optimal for them to source from that state or that area, and then identify the farming communities that will give them the most bulk. So it's actually quite possible that some of your members fall under the people that they are currently sourcing from if they are in Benue and Niger State.
And let me just add, we're also wanting to learn from you about how we can best engage with your stakeholders and with the people and communities that you're serving to let them know about the benefits that ARAF companies are providing. We want to have annual stakeholder meetings. We have a grievance mechanism that's available to y'all. We have, sources of communication that are available to your teams. We publish a public version of the annual performance report that we give to GCF. So there's a number of opportunities to engage with us, and we're really excited about opportunities to learn from you and to again share the impacts of our work with you, so that when we do have these stakeholder engagement meetings, and we intend on having them at least every year, we want to be able to give that information to your teams, to your organization, so that we can share that impact and the potential impact to the communities that you're serving. But also, if your teams have suggestions on how we can share this information further, or how we can learn about the farmers that you're working with, we are really open to learning about and excited to learn about opportunities that you're seeing, or challenges that you're seeing for farmers that you work with, and so that we can be as helpful and additive and impactful as possible.
All right, thank you, Sam. I have 2 more hands here, so I would give Emmanuel the floor. Emmanuel, you have the virtual floor.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, the presenters, for the amazing, very insightful presentation. My name is Emmanuel Acha. I am the Executive Director of Entrepreneurship Initiative for African Youth. It's an NGO based in Enugu, Nigeria. So please, knowing fully well the audience that you are addressing to right now in this section, we are NGOs. Most of us are NGOs, of course, focusing on climate change, agriculture, business, and all that. So what role? I want to get specific role that you want your audience here to perform in respect to our engagement with the ARAF, your program. Like for instance, my organization, we work in areas of agribusiness. We have a very large database of farmers, small-scale farmers or smallholder farmers, especially focusing on cassava farming, and of course, some of them also works on greenhouse farming and all that, or soilless farming. So how does ARAF come into this? How can we leverage on the opportunities that are being provided by the ARAF to be able to key in these farmers to what the opportunities that you are providing? So these are the clarifications that I want to have from the presenters. Thank you.
Hey, Akugo, do you mind if I jump in right here?
No, please go ahead.
Emmanuel, thank you so much for that question. I think it's the exact right question that we need to jump into, because this meeting, as much as we want to be able to share with your organizations about the exciting things that ARAF is accomplishing, we are also selfishly wanting to learn from your organizations. I think that the most important thing that we can get from your organizations, from NGOs, is a deeper understanding of what you're seeing on the ground with the farmers, women, and vulnerable communities that you are representing. We are, as part of developing this fund, one of our mandates and one thing that our organizations care deeply about is ensuring that the investing work that we do, the project development work that we do, is aligned with the country priorities as well as the priorities of the communities that we are serving. And so your organizations we've been doing this work with GCF for almost 10 years now. What we've learned is that NGOs, civil society organizations representing women and indigenous communities provide a powerful tool for us to learn and listen to about farmers, about women's opportunities in these areas, to learn about the climate vulnerabilities of the communities that you're serving. And so we hope that forums like this, as well as one-on-one meetings, or learning about your reporting or learning about your kind of engagements, will be places that will inform how we develop our fund and how we build out things like our gender action plans or our environmental and social management systems, or even our investing strategies. Your insights and your expertise is deeply, deeply appreciated. So we hope that we can learn from you in these stakeholder engagement meetings, as well as on an ongoing basis, either formally through, again, more stakeholder engagement meetings, or informally through one-on-one meetings or through other avenues. So that's the primary way in which we hope to engage with your teams. And if we do have opportunities where we see, oh, your farmers could benefit from this type of company, we'll be telling you, don't worry, we'll be telling you that, hey, look at this exciting new company that we're interested in, or hey, look at this exciting new opportunity about gender that we're interested in. So we really want to be able to share information about our projects so that your farmers can benefit, but also we hope that we can learn from you as well.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, I will go to the other answer. So I will give Priscilla the virtual floor. Priscilla, kindly take the floor. Okay, seems Priscilla is not on right now, so I will give I have Navia NG. Please kindly take the floor.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Emmanuel, Programs Manager from NAWIA. NAWIA stands for Nigerian Association of Women in Agriculture. And we are pleased to come in contact with Acumen and the Center for 21st Century Issues. We have listened to the entire presentation. We have several concerns, but due to lack of time, I think we will just go to what is more keen to us at the moment. We are hearing of this project for the first time on our end, and it's a program we would have loved to be part of, because NAWIA is an umbrella organization that covers all farmers across the country from across all value chains. And we have models that we have established across the country, providing agro-service centers that provide access to labor-saving equipment and also value addition services and processing for smallholder farmers, as well as training and capacity building. These kind of funds, if made accessible to our organization, we will also be able to provide services for these farmers across the three pillars: agricultural services, digital platforms, and even financial service provision. Because we at NAWIA have also utilized the VSLA model as an avenue for financial inclusion for smallholder farmers and ways of accessing funds for them. So for our organization that has a model that provides services to our smallholder farmers by way of giving them access to labor-saving equipment, where they are able to go to our agro-service centers to hire equipment like tillers and threshers, harvesters to go and farm. I think the services we are rendering here will be valid. And from the pillars mentioned by the presenter, they say aggregator platforms, digital platforms, and financial service platforms. We basically come from the angle of service provision, which sounds general, providing access to equipment, providing access to capacity building, also providing access to funding. This is a three-in-one, a three-pronged approach. And from the pillars mentioned, it looks like our methodology does not really fall directly into one of them, but scattered across all of them. So we will appreciate it if there is a new window that is still taking on other organizations or companies that can create, expand or scale up what Acumen is doing with the 21st Century Concern Center for 21st Century Concern issues. Yeah, so we are saying we are saying that if there is a new window that companies can try to key into this fund, it will be nice, because some organizations have more widespread coverage than others. And like our organization, which is present in 36 states, if we are opportune to key into such a program, I believe we will be reaching a wider coverage of farmers. Like the other person was asking how they'll be able to benefit from this. Maybe the person is in another state where the tomato juice is not present. So by that virtue, the person is not able to benefit from the good work you are doing. But if you work with other organizations and you scale up your work and expand, you may be able to make a far wider reach. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for the. Oh, you go. Sorry, we'll go for it.
Thank you, Emmanuel. The good news is that there's the window. We're hoping that the window is we're hoping that the window continues on a rolling basis, right? We had a first fund, and as I mentioned, we would have invested in more companies in Nigeria, but for the exchange rate over the last 4 years, we're hoping that with this new fund, we do intend to continue investing in Nigeria. So as long as we remain a going concern, we will continue to continue to successfully raise capital. We'll continue to deploy capital in Nigeria. So there's no closed window. So it's okay. If Nawia, it's Nawia. If Nawia is a company, like if it's organized as a company, like a limited company, and you have accounts, and you have CAC documents, and you have those processes and systems that companies are supposed to have, yes, and you're properly constituted, then we can look at your activities, because as you mentioned, it's the activities that you mentioned that you do, which is like providing access to equipment, capacity building, which we call agronomical support. That's like extension servicing, and also access to financing. Those are things that we're, on the face of it, we are interested in. So it sounds like a good opportunity, and the window is not closed. Sam, did you want to say something different?
I just wanted to add that, we don't invest in nonprofits. There are a number of GCF projects that do, but we deeply appreciate the kinds of work that NAWIA and similar organizations do. And so if there's opportunities for us to learn from y'all, or to share the kinds of companies that we're working with that can be supportive of the NAWIA objectives, we're always happy to kind of be that role. But yeah, we again, like Hugo was saying, we are excited about opportunities in Nigeria. They think that there's a ton of amazing companies that can improve gender outcomes for female farmers, and so we're very excited to keep on learning from your organization and from other organizations with similar gender-based objectives.
Sorry, let me come in a bit from here. I'm just wondering whether it's possible to also support them in terms of maybe make some kind of linkages to them to build them as one of your portfolio companies, because I know you are building your portfolio, and there are companies who may not at the initial stage also meet some of the things you want, but talking to them and supporting them to get to that level could help, because I can see a potential in Naiwa here to be able to live up to that expectation. So in terms of getting them to be on the portfolio of your different kinds of businesses, or businesses that you have marked under your portfolio, is it possible?
Just to quickly, GCF and other investors in the funds have these mandates for us for what kinds of investments that we can make. They have to reach certain revenue we have to have certain revenue targets. Like, how much companies have to make a certain amount of money for us to be able to invest in them. They have to be at a certain size. But the piece that we have control over, that we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can, is that we're reaching smallholder farmers. So there might be some amazing organizations and companies that are doing impactful work, but just that don't meet the criteria that our investors, like the Green Climate Fund, are requiring. But again, we're not saying no to organizations that fit our criteria. If they fit our criteria, we'll happily look into them. It's just that they have to fit the criteria that our investors are mandating for us. But again, the thing that we care so much about is that we can impact smallholder farmers with the investments that we're making. And so we're looking for organizations and companies like what Navia does. And so if anybody has suggestions, please reach out to me about the kinds of companies that are available or interested in learning more about ARAF, because I'm happy to, if the company fits the profile, I'll be happy to send it to the ARAF team.
Thank you.
Agbona, I see your hand up, and I saw that you have the question. I tried to answer it in the chat, but if you have any further clarifications, happy to answer it here.
Yeah, Ubona, I don't know if you can speak now. You have the virtual floor.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Obona Priscilla. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Actually, I want to thank Mr. Sam Jawat on his lectures, but I want to ask a clarification on the area that actually I am Priscilla Obona, the AD of Initiative for Care and Support to the Less Privileged from Umuahia, Abia State. And here in Abia State, my organization works with women, gender, and our concern is on renewable energy, reducing the climate change impact on the side of our rural communities, our women in general, that are more vulnerable in the side of the climate change. But our work is on adaptation and resilience on the climate change. And we introduce renewable energy smart cook stove today. But the high cost of it made it more unaffordable to the women. And we are trying all what we could to see that it's affordable to the women. I want to ask Mr. Jawat if there are ways that his organization can help to impart more of this positively to the lives of those women, and where more of them also are disabled. So that's where I want to come in to ask if there are ways his company will assist our organization to make more impact in the states. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that question. I just wanted to quickly share that, first of all, we've invested in companies that have products with renewable energy as a component. So, for example, we've invested in solar irrigation products. That said, our primary focus is not on energy; it's on agriculture. And so we are wanting to find affordable we're wanting to invest in companies that provide affordable products that could be impactful for female farmers. And so, we do surveys for these companies to understand, survey of the company's customers to understand their, affordability, their impact on women. We actually have female specific surveys that we do of female customers of the businesses that we are looking into to understand what are the impact on female customers. And so we really do try to see how we can help these companies make these products as accessible to women as possible. but that's also, again, where your expertise comes in. If you have insights into affordability issues or challenges for people with disabilities in terms of accessing climate resilience farming products, we would love to learn about that from you. And so, whatever resources or reports or insights that you have, we're really keen to learn more about what you've learned from your expertise on the field. So we're happy to, again, through these stakeholder engagement forums and through our public reports, share what we've learned about female farmers. But we're also knowing that your teams and organizations have so much information that we would benefit from. So please share with us what you've learned, and we're excited to engage with your kinds of organizations as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, there was also a question from Victor Korede. He asked, is your operation limited to tomato alone? How about other commodities? Please note that ARAF invests across the agri-value chain. ARAF is not only in Nigeria, but in Nigeria specifically, we've invested in tomato juice. As I mentioned, we're also wrapping up an investment in another company. That company that company is a digital platform that connects farmers to buyers, that connects smallholder farmers to small and medium scale processors and retailers. And the value chain that particular company works in is grains and tubers. So they do rice, they do soya bean, they do sorghum, so they do millets. So just to show you that we invest in agribusinesses, and those agribusinesses span the value chain. Okay, we're not only in tomato sector. It's just that in Nigeria specifically, we've invested in tomato juice. Does that clarify, Victor? Okay, somebody's hand is up. I'll hand it back over to Jumoke because I can't really see whose hand is up, but I see a hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I think Bona's hand is still up. She was the one that asked the last question, so I don't think there's any question from anyone, but we'll still open the floor for inputs and suggestions, if any.
Sorry, Jumoke, I have one question. Yeah, either for Sam or the other lady. You talked about the currency volatility. So what are your hedging strategies for this? Because I know that if this volatility continues, it may be very difficult to actually invest in Nigeria. So do you have some hedging strategy for this challenge?
Okay, thank you for that question. I mean, the biggest hedging strategy that we are implementing across our portfolio is investing in businesses that, this is agribusinesses that have exposure to export markets, because then the revenue that they make will be in foreign currency. And that also improves the underlying country's economy too, right? Because that's a source for foreign exchange for the country. So investing in companies that have a big component of their revenue is towards exports. That's the biggest one. Apart from that, it's to invest in businesses that are tech businesses or tech-enabled businesses that can grow at fast paces so that their pace of growth outpaces devaluation. But it's very hard to ask companies to deliver 50% growth year on year for a period of 5 to 7 years. So that's the challenge. So it's mostly import substitution and exports.
Thank you. I think there's another question in the chat box from Emmanuel. Do you also support agri initiatives around the greenhouse and soilless farming for young people? That's the question from Emmanuel.
I mean, what I would say to that is, on the face of it, is just I would be thinking about the scalability of it. Like, so as Sam mentioned, we're looking for businesses that that are commercially viable and can scale, right? In terms of like revenue generation, and it's already like their commercial viability is demonstrable. So if it falls under the criteria, then yes, we haven't done anything in this. So we haven't done anything in that sphere, but it would have to pass those tests in terms of revenue generation and also scalability. It's the scalability part that I'd be looking into. Is there any other thing Emmanuel wanted to add?
Yes, Emmanuel, do you have anything to add on? Are you clarified with the answer? Okay. I don't think Emmanuel is on right now. So
yes, I'm here. I think there was a question whether I needed to add any other thing to that. I'm not sure I have any other. Just to get for clarification around if ARAF support initiatives around greenhouse or soilless farming. I think I've gotten that answer, just like the last speaker has already said. There's no issue because our organization actually focused on young people. Of course, whether they're young people from indigenous communities, young girls, and so we encourage all those things around, of course, supporting young women to go into farming, and of course, generally young people to consider agriculture as an alternative to address the issues of youth unemployment we have in Africa, in Nigeria particularly. So, and of course, in terms of revenue generation and the scalability as part of the criteria has been used by ARAF to assess proposals, the viability of proposals. Of course, these initiatives, like what we do in my organization, they are proven to be, they are revenue generation initiatives, and of course they are scalable too. So we meet that criteria. So thank you so much for that clarification. Anyway, thank you.
Just quickly, Emmanuel, I remember you saying this is an NGO. The ARAF II and ARAF invest in for-profit businesses. We're glad to work with nonprofits and NGOs in terms of information sharing and learning more about each other and sharing insights that we learn. But the investments we have to make because the Green Climate Fund are in for-profit companies, and so I think that we can point you to resources that we find that are good for NGOs, but just to know that because GCF has a mandate, has a requirement, we can't invest in NGOs in particular.
Of course, that's noted. That's noted. If I'm speaking, I'm talking about the community that we, of course, our initiatives focused on, which are young entrepreneurs or young agribusiness people and other agri SMEs that we focused on. So I'm speaking on their behalf. Actually, not really as the NGO having the criteria to meet or having to meet these criteria that ARAF has already stated. Thank you.
Sorry, not to belabor it, sorry, but I just heard you talk about individuals. So just as long as it's clear that we only fund for-profit corporations, so limited liability companies, for profit, not people, farmers, or non-profits. As long as that's clear.
Yeah, you
that's
said this is this. Oh, sorry. Go for it, Manuel.
Yes, that's fair and well understood.
Right. Thank you for the clarifications. There's another question in the chat box from South Africa. It says, when you talk about working with just for profit, I wanted to ask if social enterprises are considered. Okay. Sam, do you want to say something regarding that?
I just said that social enterprises that are for-profit LLCs, limited liability companies, that's our sweet spot. That's what we want to invest in. So, if you have a great business that is making, over $1 million in revenue a year, we're really interested in learning about those kinds of social enterprises. But we really, because again, our investors have these expectations of us, we have certain criteria. So if companies are scaling and they're meeting some of these marks that we're talking about, like they're a for-profit business, they're impacting smallholder farmers, they're building climate resilience, they are potentially $1 million or more in earning in revenue a year, please send them our way. Please send them to me. I'd be so happy to work with your teams to learn more about these impactful businesses that you're seeing. This is exactly the kind of things we want to learn about. So we're so excited that you're offering us these opportunities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. On the agenda, we have, the last thing we have now is wrap up and closing. I will be calling on Ms. Akusa to give a wrap up as we end the meeting. Ms. Akusa, you have the floor now.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sam, and your colleague. Thank you all, and thank you to all our women and farmers that showed up, and all our NGOs, sisters and brothers that came for this program. I really appreciate all of you. I thank you for attending, and at least today we have a whole lot of you here trying to understand what is happening. And please continue to stay connected to us, because there's still so many more things that we are going to be doing together. And thank you, everybody. Yep.
Thank you, Ma. There's a question in the chat box, and I think we'll take that shortly before we end the meeting. Okay, the question is from Ellen. It says, our problem here in Niger State is off-taking. Our women have problem of off-taking on crops like soybean, sorghum, groundnuts, and how can you link us with off-taker?
Helen, we'd love to learn more about that from you. If you have any, insights or reports or anything like that on this, that'd be great. We've learned about a number of businesses that do offtake. I'm curious, Hugo, is there any companies that you've come across that does this kind of work in Nigeria, or anyone that we could point them in that direction, or should we follow up on that one?
No, yeah. So the company I just mentioned that we're wrapping up an investment, they do offtake for soybean, and they do offtake in Niger State. So it just depends on if the specific community that they are in falls within that, within where the women that she's talking about are in. So soybean and sorghum are things that they offtake from. I think for soybean, if Ida is on the group, she might correct me. There are just different quality. I think for soybean is maybe that's cashew. They're just different qualities that they check in terms of maybe whether the specific production meets the qualities that whether their buyers have prescribed. And once that's the case, then that's something we can connect them with the company. That's simple. But it's not a, as I've mentioned before, we don't have any control over what the company does. If the specific community in Niger State is not where, because there are efficiency considerations around where a company offtakes from or aggregates from, rather, in terms of if all their communities, Niger State is such a big state. So if all the communities that they're currently offtaking from is in the west of Niger State, but the women that you work with are in the east of Niger State, then it might not be commercially efficient or viable for them to start offtaking from that society. But the company that we're about to invest in is actively looking for communities, for cooperatives, for access to farmers. And so if you have those farmers, we can connect you to them and see how it goes, if you're interested in that.
Yeah, Helen, could you put your email in the chat, and then we'll or we'll find a way to connect with you to learn more about how we can connect you to this company.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Quickly, the last one for the day. This is from Awa. Do you support activities that facilitate agribusiness? For instance, climate smart agriculture for profit?
I think Hawa has to say more. Can she describe it better or in a different way?
Hawa, please, if you can hear me, you have the virtual floor. Please kindly give us more on your question, please.
Okay, hello.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, this is Hawa. Can I speak and elaborate on my question?
Yes, please.
They are doing okay, we work with farmers that cater to what the traditional way of farming skill. It doesn't improve their well, just the traditional old method of farming for for subsistence. And now we are moving to train them on how to understand issues having impact on the soil and so on and so forth. So agriculture, but also to understand it, making agriculture a business that moves their well-being, their livelihood. So it's a business for which they make profit. They have to calculate what goes in there and what comes out. So that kind of a thing. And then what are all those supportive facilities that they require, in terms of knowledge, in terms of information, in terms of maybe support facilities that will enhance that will also add value to that primary group. So it's not just getting the raw thing out, but also how to preserve it, how to add value to it, so that at least it becomes a business. You are conscious of the fact that you're not just farming, but you are farming to make money, you are farming to make profits.
Okay, thank you, Hawa. So that's specifically what we're trying to accomplish. The way we go about accomplishing it is by investing in agribusinesses. The agribusinesses that we invest in, most of them, because this is something that we heavily look for, most of them provide agronomical support to smallholder farmers. And that agronomical support is what you've just mentioned, teaching them new ways of farming, including climate smart agriculture. So yes, we do provide that, but as Sam mentioned earlier on, it's sort of like indirectly, because as Sam and Timona mentioned, we specifically do not go into the field to teach farmers, right? We work through agribusinesses. Those agribusinesses support farmers with agronomical support and climate smart agriculture farming knowledge. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so you say in that case, you don't work with them directly. So for us, we don't call ourselves agribusiness, whatever, but then we provide these services to the farmers. You know, we give them the knowledge, we give them the relevant training, and then but we are not an agribusiness.
Okay, so your question is, sorry, can you
support us to support them, to enhance the support we provide to them?
Okay, let me just clarify something. We are a fund, so we are an investment fund. What happens is that we pool private capital, private capital, public capital, development finance capital. These institutions give us capital that we need to return to them. We need to return this capital to them with a premium, so with a return, i.e., we have to return, we even have like an investment threshold. So we have to return the capital to them at more money with more return than they would have gotten if they just put it in like a bond, right? Which is why Sam mentioned that we have to invest in for-profit companies, because for-profit companies mechanisms with which we can use to return capital, i.e., we can sell our shares. So when we invest in companies, as I mentioned earlier, we invest in equity. By the factor of our work with the companies grow, right? I mentioned that we've helped the companies that we've invested in grow their revenue by 3x. So their revenue grows, we help them to be more efficient, their profitability also grows. On that basis, the initial equity that we invested has also grown. And that's how we then are able to exit and return capital to our investors. So that's what Sam was explaining, that the people who invest money, the people whose money, we are just agents. The people who have given us their money to make this impact and make this investment, they have specifications because they need us to return their money. And part of that specification has to do with, we have to invest in for-profit companies, number one. We have to invest in companies who have reached a certain size, so that we know that that what they're doing is sort of like proven. Their business model is viable, is proven, and it can scale. And so those are the sort of like the guardrails around our investments.
That's very clear. Thank you very much for this one.
Thanks.
And again, if you have observations or understanding of like what we're trying to learn about climate resilience, we want to learn from you. It's just that we might not be the right financial instrument to support your organization, and we can support your organization in other ways. Sharing information that we've learned, or whatever, or sharing what our farmers are saying. But if you don't meet these criteria that our investors are requiring of us, that's totally understandable. Not a ton of companies or organizations do that. But we do want to continue learning and partnering with these amazing organizations here. Emmanuel, on the interest rate, unfortunately, because of laws around marketing, we aren't able to share what kind of return expectations we have. However, if any, we've shared what the purpose of this project is. If people are interested in learning more about, if folks are connected to, we can only share this information with investors who are seeking information from us in terms of the return profiles. So that's the long and short of it, because it's illegal for us to share return information to non-investors who are not in the due diligence, who are not investigating our product. So unfortunately, we can't share that because we don't want to do something illegal. And now to the 21st Century team, who I'm sure you're wrapping things up, but again, wanted to extend our deepest gratitude to this group of farmers and women and important organizations who are supporting the work of Nigeria. I saw someone from Ghana, from Egypt. So thank you all so much for attending and for giving us this opportunity to share this project with you.
Yeah, thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much for your questions. Oh, sorry, Jumoke.
That's fine, it's okay.
Thank you so much for your questions and for your engagement. As Sam mentioned, we really would like to, work with you, learn from you, especially because we are all trying to help smallholder farmers to be able to improve their livelihood. So as much as you're seeing on the ground, if there are any insights or learnings or things that you think we should be mindful of, would really love to have those. So you can please share those. And if you see opportunities that are sort of like for profits that we can support, we'd like to also hear about those. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really want to appreciate the Acumen team. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for organizing this webinar. As we come to the end of this webinar, we will reflect on the valuable insights and perspectives shared regarding the ARAF II. And we would like to express our sincere gratitude to all participants for their contributions and commitment to the success of ARAF II. And yes, through the discussions, we've learned about the project's key components, including enhancing productivity through improved inputs, facilitating access to markets, and then providing critical infrastructure support. So we would, moving forward, it is crucial that we maintain the momentum generated by this webinar, and then we translate all of these to collective knowledge and tangible actions. So we look forward to more collaboration with the Acumen team. And then thank you, Sam, for sharing your email for participants to engage with. We really, really want to thank the Acumen team. Thank you so much once again. This is the end of the webinar.
Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.